Let's talk about alchemy. I have always been fascinated by it, and it has been a part of my life as far back as I can remember. I grew up, as many of you know, blessed with a mother who channels. What you may not know is that she also had a temple in Puerto Rico, and she's an initiate of alchemy. In her temple, she worked with a spiritual brotherhood to perform powerful alchemical rituals to heal and transmute energy. Her home altar has a collection of elements that I used to play with for hours as a little girl. I was obsessed with them. Fast forward, I, like most teenagers, felt a lot of frustration and dissatisfaction with my life and the circumstances my family was facing back then. This unhappiness, it drove me inward. I began to have many profound conversations with Ascended Master St. Germain. I probably drove him crazy with all my questions and asking him to use his powers to change things for me. Of course, rather than do it for me, he took a more practical approach and began to teach me the art of alchemy. He told me, "You are an alchemist just like me," and always reminded me, if you don't like something, change it. I would get so sarcastic with him. I would say things like, "Oh yeah, really? It's just that simple, right?" He would tell me again and again, "Of course it is. You are an alchemist. You have done this in the past and you can do it again. Use your inner alchemy to manifest what you do want. You can't transform and change things in the now." This message has always stayed with me. From that time on, I have focused my energy on manifesting what I want in my life. And I am pretty proud of what I have accomplished so far. But somewhere along the way, I forgot about the alchemical process behind it. Alchemy has always been a part of me for lifetimes. So why am I talking about it now? Recently, I went to Egypt for energetic integration and initiation. The experience gave me a deeper understanding and a new perspective. I came to understand that we are all alchemists, and alchemy is part of life. Let me show you how. First, we need to understand the origins of alchemy. For many, the word alchemy brings images like this to mind. People searching for the philosopher's stone, turning lead into gold. Can you imagine what it would be like to be able to transform anything around as you pleased? Jesus, who is thought to have mastered alchemy, demonstrated this through such miracles like transforming water into wine or feeding thousands of people from a single loaf of bread. To an alchemist, all things are possible. Within alchemy, there are two key perspectives that need to be understood. The first perspective is the common metaphor of internal alchemy, which I will cover more in depth in a later talk. But it is basically a process of working within ourselves to transform the lead of our baser instincts and ego mind to the golden ideals of our higher self. Internal alchemy utilizes the power of both the conscious and subconscious mind. When Saint Germain told me to transmute the things I didn't like, part of his message was to utilize inner alchemy to ascend my thoughts to a higher vibration, and this way unlocking new dimensions and new possibilities. Now, the other perspective is known as Operative Alchemy. This is the art of transmutation. Internal alchemy can be very multidimensional, going from the depths of the psyche all the way to your I am presence. Where operative alchemy, on the other hand, is physical. It is the science of mastering the 3D reality. Some attribute the origins of alchemy to Atlantis, but the name is a direct reference to ancient Egypt. Al translates to the, and Chemia is an ancient name for Egypt, meaning Black Earth. The Black Earth that they were referring to has two interpretations. The first was literally describing the rich black soil created by sediment left behind after the annual flooding of the Nile River. But for the alchemists, there's a more esoteric understanding of this. The ancient ones always looked to the sky as the ultimate source of divinity. I will explain why they believe this in a moment. But before I do, we have to understand that the Egyptians, like many other cultures, were deeply invested in bringing divinity down to earth. They built their temples and chose their sacred sites based on celestial alignments. Mexico has pyramids of the sun and moon, and there are hundreds of other examples around the world of ancient civilizations marking cosmic alignments with various landmarks. In this way of thinking, the earth itself becomes the black void of space, a black canvas for the reflection of the heavens. To put it another way, alchemia, the Black Earth. A perfect representation of this idea is a satellite photo taken at night. Imagine if our cities were actually laid out to map the stars and harmonize with their energy. Anyway, now that we have covered the origins of the word alchemy, let's talk about why the ancients thought it was important to bring the heavens to earth. And the root of the saying, as above, so below. Many ancient cultures have documented contact with various forms of extraterrestrials. There's a belief that humanity has been guided by these star beings since the dawn of time, and that they came here bringing with them advanced knowledge and technology. One such star being documented in Egyptian mythology is named Thoth. He is represented in art as having a human body and the head of an ibis, the sacred bird symbolizing wisdom and working with magic. According to legend, Thoth gave humanity vast amounts of knowledge, including language, arts, and science. This knowledge essentially taught us how to work with matter and nature, allowing humans to better understand our reality through the mind. With this understanding, we could better navigate the reality of this material world. These alchemical sciences eventually spread throughout Europe and the rest of the world, thanks in part to the Greeks and later the Romans. The Greek initiates wrote down and codified the wisdom of Thoth, adapting it to fit their own culture. They attributed his teachings to a deity they were already familiar with, named Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Because of these changes, alchemy is also known as the Hermetic arts. Of all the alchemical writings, the most important is known as the Emerald Tablet. It was attributed to both Hermes and Thoth, and it contains the entire philosophy and understanding of alchemy. To the initiated alchemist, it reveals the secrets of creation, unlocking the power to transmute matter from one state to another. There are many translations and the wording may vary slightly, but they all declare unity and oneness. The first line basically says, literally, what I am about to tell you is true. Then the tablet declares, what is below is like that which is above, and what is above is similar to that which is below, to accomplish the wonders of one thing. So what does that mean? What is the one thing? First, let's start with below, because that is where we reside. The below represents our physical world, the land, everything we see, we hear, we touch, we smell, and experience in this 3D reality that we live in. The below was created by the above. The above is where divinity comes from. It is the home of God, Source, or the various deities. It is also represented as the stars, planets, and that which can't be seen by our physical senses. So paradoxically, the above also represents our internal world. The above creates the below, and the below reflects the above. Together, they create one thing. The one thing is everything, absolute oneness. It is our reality, it is us, it is this dimension we're living in. In alchemy, just like many other spiritual traditions, this oneness has three aspects, creating a trinity. Another way to describe this is the inner reflects the outer, and the outer reflects the inner. The macrocosmos is in the microcosmos, and the microcosmos is in the macrocosmos. They are individual, yet together they create one. To better understand the above, alchemists used their knowledge to investigate the below. They coded their wisdom, representing the soul with sulfur, spirit with mercury, and used salt to represent the body. From here, things get a little complicated for a brief introduction, but I will do my best to tie this all together. Each of these elements represented various qualities. Let's start with the first one, sulfur, which represents the soul, has qualities of consciousness, fire, heat, and dryness. Alchemists also associated this element with oil. Sulfur is considered active because it can cause change, and in the duality of masculine and feminine, it is masculine. Next, you have Mercury, corresponding to the spirit. It also represents the mind because it is fluid like water and cool. It carries with it the power of feminine energy. And lastly, salt represents the body. Salt was chosen because it is a metaphor for the process of transmutation. Like our consciousness, it begins impure, it gets dissolved in liquid, is reheated and crystallized in a more pure form. The body is the unity of mercury and sulfur. All of creation comes from the harmony of these ideas. Spirit, or pure consciousness, made the soul. The soul, which is the mind, made the body and the material world we're living in now. In other words, this world is nothing more than an illusion of the mind. We created it. Let me explain. Even though our bodies and world feel very real to us, they're not. Within the vast formless essence and source of creation, a thought arose. This thought gave rise to the mind. This new state of being is a part of the one, yet individual, so we call it the soul. In alchemy, the mind. This soul mind continued to create thought forms which eventually solidified into our bodies and the physical world that we inhabit, so that it could play and experience many things. The funny thing about all of this is that the soul became so divided into the many at one level, it got totally lost in the play and forgot who and what it really is. That is why it comes back in the form of beings like Thoth and elevated masters to remind us the rules of the game. This may seem hard to believe, but we already know at the highest level that we exist without a body. Every major religion and most cultures recognize that there is some sort of life beyond death. We also know our bodies, like all matter in this physical world, is always changing and evolving. Everything goes through a process of birth, growth, death, and decay. There's nothing in this world that is permanent. This principle right here is the very reason transmutation of the physical world is possible, because everything is always in a state of change, and it is possible to act upon it and manifest what we want. Saint Germain was right when he said, "I am an alchemist." But guess what? So are you. The moment you realize that this whole physical reality is truly an illusion, that our thoughts, ideas, concepts are what gives form and structure to this impermanent world, then you also know you can change whatever you don't like. Alchemists simply understand how consciousness relates to matter and matter relates to consciousness. This is where the science of inner alchemy comes into play. But it really is too much for one talk. In the next video, I will explain the essentials of inner alchemy, which will help to give a practical understanding of both aspects of this science, so that you can learn to transmute and manifest your reality. If you would like to learn more, or you're looking for a supportive, open-minded spiritual community, please visit beingonecenter.org. Thank you.